Welcome to The Jewish World, the show that discusses the week's most pressing issues facing the Jewish state, the Jewish people, and the global Jewish community. Our first stop, Malaysia. Malaysia has said that it will not allow Israeli swimmers into the country to attend a competition that serves as a qualifying event for the 2020 Paralympics in Tokyo. The event is set to be held at the end of July in the city of Kuching and will host hundreds of swimmers from some 70 countries. Malaysia, a Muslim-majority country, does not maintain diplomatic ties with Israel and therefore does not allow entry into the country on an Israeli passport. The Israeli Paralympic team had hoped to obtain visas to enter, but this past week, Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad said Kuala Lumpur would deny visas to Israeli swimmers. The AFP reported that the official Bergama news agency quoted the Malaysian Prime Minister as saying, quote, "We maintain our stand on the prohibition. If they do come, it is a violation," end quote. He added that if the International Paralympic Committee wants to withdraw Malaysia's right to host the championship, they can do so. In response, the International Paralympic Committee said in a statement that it was disappointed by the decision and said it would try to find a solution. Meanwhile, 29 pro-Palestinian and pro-BDS NGOs issued a statement in support of the Malaysian government's actions. The statement said, "No human being or country in its right mind should want to have anything to do with such a murderous regime, whether in sports, trade, culture, or any other area. Boycotting and isolating Israel is the very least that can be and should be done to express moral outrage." And now to Spain. 9 activists from the BDS movement in Spain are scheduled to testify in a Valencia court today, accused, among other charges, of inciting hatred. The case dates back to 2015 when the BDS group in Spain led a campaign against the famous Jewish-American singer Matisiao. Here to discuss is the president of ACOM, an anti-BDS group which is taking legal action against the phenomenon in Spain, Ángel Mas. Ángel, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Hi. So for those who are unfamiliar with the case, can you provide a background of what happened in 2015? Because there really wasn't much of a justification for targeting Matisiao. He's not even Israeli.
Absolutely. This is a very clear, perfect example of BDS not being necessarily our only anti-Israel. Is a clear demonstration that it's an anti-Semitic group. Matisiao was planned to perform in this very famous concert in the Valencia region. He was invited, but there was a very widespread, very well-organized campaign for him to be excluded on the basis of his support to Israel in general and to the IDF, but without any firm points or any firm evidence. He was demanded to be excluded, as I said, and, at the beginning because of the violence, verbal violence, because of the aggressiveness of the campaign. The organizers decided to disinvite him. Eventually, he was required to denounce the Jewish state in order to perform. The artist rejected that. He thought it was obviously discrimination. Nobody else, other artists from other countries, other regions, other issues, nobody else was demanded to make any kind of declaration, political declaration about him. He rejected that. We got in touch with the organization. Members of the European Parliament got in touch with the organization. There was a large campaign internationally, and as a result of that, he was re-invited to the concert. The BDS groups obviously hated the fact that they were being unsuccessful, and as a result, they organized a very, very vocal, very violent, physically and verbally, to first prevent him from performing, and second, in the middle of the performance, to boycott and sabotage his acting.
So in the end, though, the BDS movement wasn't able to stop him from performing.
They were not able. They did everything they could to stop it, and once he performed, they did everything they could to sabotage the performance. But in the end, his performance was very successful. It was very well covered in the media, and in the public opinion took notice, both nationally and internationally. It was probably the first time that the political and media system mainstream in Spain got to understand the true profile of the BDS movement here in Spain as not only anti-Israel, but as anti-Semitic. And what we have here is a legal case that started then 4 years ago to bring the organizer, the instigators of this campaign, the 9 leaders of the BDS organization in this particular region in Spain to court.
So back to today in court, what exactly are they being tried for?
Well, it's an incitement of hatred. That's a crime in Spain. The incitement was not only incitement, it was very violent in its expression, and it was an attempt to curtail the artistic freedom and freedom of speech. So it was coercion, it was intimidation, and all these things are brought to the table because there's no impunity in Spain for this type of behaviors.
And yet BDS, is a widespread phenomenon in Spain. What makes Spain so unique in this regard? So why is BDS flourishing not just on a grassroots level, but we see it also at the municipal level?
Well, what changed was the political support that the BDS movement got from this particular political party called Podemos. Podemos was founded with the support, the financial support of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Venezuelan regime. They had never denied it. And a key part of their agenda is the delegitimization of Israel and the support of the boycott against Israel, and not only Israel, against any Spanish citizens that support the Jewish state. And the way they do it is in the national and municipal and regional institutions where they participate and they control, they promote these boycotts. These boycotts are, as I say, institutional. What that means is that from the state itself, those that support Israel, Israeli citizens, Israeli companies, but as I say, also Israeli Jewish citizens, are boycotted officially, trying to be excluded from political, social, economic, and civic activities in the municipalities, in the regions, in the provinces these people control. This is what makes this movement so aggressive and such an existential threat. And against that, it is that ACOM has launched a good number of legal cases, and we have won so far 37 of them.
So ACOM, why don't you expand a little bit about some of the work that ACOM, your organization, is doing to combat BDS in Spain?
Well, we first of all, we try to inform the political system what these people are really about, what they stand for. They sell themselves as human rights activists. We unmask them. We explain what they stand for. We are active in traditional and social media with the same means, but when all that fails, we take them to court. We take them, the municipalities or the state institutions that have promoted boycott and approved boycotts against Israeli citizens. We have won a number of cases, and now what we are doing is taking the instigators and the approvers of these boycotts with their personal penal responsibility, with their criminal responsibility to court.
Great. Well, we will continue to keep an eye on this case as it develops. Angel Mas, thank you so much for joining us to discuss this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now to Washington, D.C. The U.S. House of Representatives passed legislation that sets a deadline for President Donald Trump to nominate a special envoy to combat anti-Semitism. The measure, the Special Envoy to Monitor and Combat Anti-Semitism Act, was introduced by New Jersey Republican Chris Smith and was overwhelmingly approved by congressmen with a vote of 411 to 1. The only lawmaker to oppose the bill was Republican Justin Amash from Michigan. The new bill would upgrade the status of the Anti-Semitism Monitor to an ambassadorship, requiring Senate confirmation and forcing the president by law to fill the position within 90 days. The position has remained vacant since Trump took office, this despite continual calls from Jewish groups in the United States that the position needed to be filled due to a rise in anti-Semitism. The Anti-Defamation League issued a statement welcoming the vote. ADL CEO and National Director Jonathan Greenblatt said in a statement that it is disappointing and frankly baffling that this critical position has remained vacant since January 2017. He said lobbying Congress to pass the bill had been a top priority for the ADL, and he urged the Senate to take up this bill in a timely manner. And now to Rome, Italy. Racism and anti-Semitism in sports. It's not something new. And now, according to an AFP report this past week, Italian police started a new investigation after Roma fans had allegedly distributed anti-Semitic posters targeting Roma's rival teams of Lazio and Napoli. ILTV's Joy Gavillon, who previously reported on the story, is here to discuss.
Thanks, Lidar. As you said, these kind of incidents, especially when it comes to soccer, are not new at all. And once again, in Italy this time, and according to the AFP report, supporters of the soccer team Roma allegedly distributed leaflets attacking the rivals. But not only that, they also compare them to Israel. The posters say in these words, Lazio, Napoli, and Israel, same colors, same flags. And again, I'm not going to repeat this word, but everyone can see it in the picture.
Well, this is just terrible and actually pretty sad.
Yes, it is. It's actually very sad, but the truth is that soccer is a game that, because some of extremist groups within their supporters, is tainted with violence and even anti-Semitism. All these posters were signed by a group from Roma Ultras and were placed in an area where Lazio supporters gather for the team's anniversary celebrations, an event that, by the way, ended up in violent clashes with the police.
Okay, so as we said before, this isn't new, but it seems like despite all the efforts, incidents are only getting worse.
Yeah, and this new incident comes only 1 year after another one that took place in Italy and had repercussions worldwide for using Anne Frank's picture. In October 2017, Lazio supporters posted stickers of a photoshopped Anne Frank wearing Roma's jersey, and alongside the picture, there were anti-Semitic slogans saying, Roma fans are Jews. Now, after the fact, the team was fined, and in the following round of games, a passage from Anne Frank's diary was read as a decision made by the Italian Football Federation.
And what about this latest incident?
Well, the mayor of Rome, Virginia Raggi, posted on Twitter that she firmly condemns the posters, but there hasn't been any word on possible sanctions or preventing measures so far.
Well, hopefully the police investigation will lead to those responsible, but more than anything, I hope that the authorities can find a way to address this issue in order to prevent it from happening again. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Lidar.
And now, back to Washington, D.C. The Eretz Israel Synagogue in Washington, D.C., first built in 1876, is the oldest standing synagogue in the American nation's capital, and it stood proudly at 2850 Quebec Street ever since, until now. But it's not been destroyed. No, in order to preserve the structure and to protect it from damage due to nearby construction, Eretz Israel, the whole of it, is being moved down the street.
No, this is quite an urban spectacle. We're actually moving this historic building. It's the first synagogue that was built in Washington, D.C., and we are moving it down the street to the corner of 3rd and F, where it's going to become the centerpiece of the new Capitol Jewish Museum.
The brick-and-mortar building was first loaded Wednesday onto a massive platform that's motorized and mobilized with dozens of wheels. Moving crews escorted the synagogue down the road.
It's fascinating from an engineering and technical standpoint, and we still have our fingers crossed. You know, there's still a lot of work to be done.
And despite just moving down the road to the corner of 3rd and F Street, it's still a technical marvel, taking hours to complete.
They're telling us maybe 4 to 6 hours, although I think we're about to get run over.
And finally, upon arrival, the plan for the historic structure is to be joined with the Lillian and Albert Small Capitol Jewish Museum. It's scheduled to open in 2021 and will focus on the rich history of Jewish American life in D.C. This leads us to our next topic. According to a critical new report released Monday by international watchdog group NGO Monitor, the World Council of Churches is engaging in anti-Semitic rhetoric and in training programs for BDS activism. The World Council of Churches, or the WCC, represents a fellowship of 350 congregations totaling nearly 500 million Christians worldwide. And for the past 15 years, they've been running one of their most successful programs, the EAPPI, or the Ecumenical Accompaniment Program in Palestine and Israel, bringing volunteers into Israel to essentially engage in anti-Israel rhetoric and activities. And joining us to discuss is Olga Deutsch, Vice President of NGO Monitor. Olga, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's jump right in. What exactly has this report found?
Well, we've been looking at this phenomenon, you know, the flagship program of the World Council of Churches for years, and we've been approached by many of the churches around the world and the activists who have been raising the question, how is this possible? We have sent basically the World Council of Churches through the YAPI program, almost 2,000 activists since 2002 for a special training in Israel, after which they are sent back to their original countries around the world to engage in very anti-Israel campaigning that includes rallies, rhetoric such as comparing Israel to Nazi Germany, apartheid in South Africa, all the way to much actually more dangerous and worrisome trends such as denying any connection, Jewish connection to the State of Israel, denying, saying that today's State of Israel has very little to do with the biblical Jewish people or the Bible, so engaging in replacement theology. We saw some of the top leaders of the World Council of Churches issuing statements like Christian Zionism equals heresy. I mean, it is almost incomprehensible to a modern mind that an institution like a World Council of Churches would engage in such rhetoric. So the report basically tries to assemble facts about this issue, and it aims at raising awareness on the necessity to pose really serious and critical questions on how the church today engages with Jews and with the State of Israel, and these two should not be separated, because calling for violence, incitement to justifying violence against Jews, according to modern definitions, is a new form of anti-Semitism.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that's been going on for years. So I mean, how is this just coming to light now?
Well, it's been going on for years because I think it is so very difficult for anyone, decision makers, states, or what you would call a human rights community, global community, to even try to understand that this is possible. We're talking about programs that officially go by the name promoting human rights, fighting the greatest injustices around the world. The World Council of Churches has activities in around 10 countries, some of the worst human rights violators globally. So no one was looking, you know, and no one was asking the questions, including in the State of Israel. All these activists, and it's almost 2,000, so you have to understand that they go back to their countries engaging in campaigning and lobbying their governments. They come and they're trained to monitor, to document, to use this afterwards, and they're all here to be taught to single out Israel, basically. They blame Israel entirely for anything and everything that happens here, and I think it is mainly an inability of the modern community to grasp this as a possibility. But I think we have come to an end to that, and we have to call for action in stopping these kind of activities. And
you've also found that there are major Western countries donating to this program.
Well, the way it functions is that you have a World Council of Churches, a Geneva-based organization with incredible reputation and legitimacy, connections, and international stance, if you'd like. So they partner with organizations. They also have national coordination teams. So a Dan church, a Danish church organization, or Norwegian church organization, or a British church organization, they both fund and recruit activists for this program. So you also have governments that engage with the World Council of Churches, believing they're doing good.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably the gravest of aspects about this thing, that you have believers, Christian believers around the world, who on one hand donate money to their local churches, and on the other hand believe that governments are also supporting what their church is doing, and they're being taught that in the name of Christianity, being a Zionist is a sin. They're being taught a 21st century version of anti-Semitism.
Yeah. Well, Olga Deutsch, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us about these very important topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and may I wish you good luck with the new program.
Oh, thank you very much. Do you remember your first anti-Semitic experience? Well, we've just kicked off 2019, and anti-Semitism is not just alive and well. It's bullying, threatening, and attacking Jews around the world. And a new hashtag on Twitter is revealing just how worrisome this phenomenon is. Rabbi Tzvi Solomons, the rabbi of the Jewish community of Berkshire, UK, started the hashtag when he tweeted asking Jews to share their first anti-Semitic experiences. And the stories have come pouring in. Some were recent and some older, but all leaving a lasting impression. Anyone who still tries to deny that anti-Semitism exists should read the disturbing tweets. We've highlighted just a few for you here. So Twitter user @LewisLawyer wrote, "Age 5, having a squabble with boy in my street. His mother comes out. Shame Hitler didn't finish you all off. I had to ask my parents who he was. She was a teacher at an RC school." @Adam Manit, "My first anti-Semitic experience was having pennies thrown at me in class, aged 8, followed by a swastika carved on my desk. A few days later, I was beaten mercilessly by a gang of 6 boys who then dumped me in a rubbish bin to simulate putting me in an oven." @Truth Fiction journalist Anika Rothstein shared that she was tormented for 3 years in school until she ended up shaving off my big curly hair, hoping to hide my Jewishness. @Shai DeLuca shared that he attended the March of the Living walking through the streets of Poland, wrapped in flags of Israel, when a young kid, no more than 15 years old, stood behind the barricade with a switchblade, looked him in the eye, and said, "Next time, it's all of you." Other stories include being checked for horns, receiving verbal assaults accusing Jews of killing Christ, hearing Holocaust slurs, and even brutal physical violence. And these are just a few out of thousands of similar stories. Have you shared yours? That's all the time we have today for ILTV's The Jewish World. I'd like to thank our guests and all of you for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News, on Twitter at ILTV News, and on our website at iltv.tv. I'm Ladar Gavei-Lazi. Thanks for watching.